Okay, lesson 28. Pratyahara. It's a subject I mentioned many times already because it is so important in our development. Pratyahara is detachment. And the subject or the technique is so important that it is one of the 8 limbs of yoga. At the same time, it is very much undervalued and neglected in most yoga programs that teach the whole science of yoga. Very often Pratyahara is taught in a similar way as the yamas and niyamas, very shortly, by saying, well, detach from wealth, detach from status, detach from possessions. But that's only 1% of the story. Also, with that simplified explanation, many people interpret Pratyahara as meaning that possession is not good. Possession is bad. But we have learned from chapter 1 of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika that the foundation for spiritual development is in the first instance a material foundation. You have to have a place, a house, a studio. You have to have a place where you can practice, but not only that, you have to have a place where you feel safe, comfortable, where your basic needs are met. These are all material aspects. Yoga cannot succeed without the material foundation. It's simple as that. So possession is not bad. What is distinguishing, or what makes the distinction is why. You can just possess for the possession to gather more and more, or you can possess for the need of it. And those are 2 totally different things. But why Pratyahara is one of the 8 limbs, the 5th limb, and why it is so important is because yoga leads to a development that makes Pratyahara crucial, essential in your toolbox. If yoga is done correctly, you become more conscious. You become more sensitive. You become more inquisitive. You become aware of many aspects of yourself and life in general that you never gave thought about before, that you never gave thought to before. As a result of your increasing consciousness in combination with sensitivity, one of the first steps that the conscious becoming yogi takes is investigating the self. And you start first digging into your past. naturally. It's not something that you choose to do or consciously do. Just in moments of reflection, contemplation, you naturally are drawn to yourself and particularly to the past. That is how you dig up memories from early childhood that normally people have no memory of. Naturally, it comes to the surface of your consciousness. As a human being, naturally, we have a tendency to be drawn to the emotion that is related to the memory, which can be positive or negative. And because we identify with the emotion, we get stuck there. We start drowning ourselves in the emotion. The emotion starts distracting us from the present, starts distracting us from things that are important. It explains why people suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder are incapable of having a job, focusing on work or study, because their mind is constantly pulled back into the past. Not just that, but to emotions. And it disables them, literally. And that is an extreme example, but as yogis with a relatively normal life, you will dig into the past and you will also come across memories connected with emotions that threaten to disable you if you don't pay attention, if you're not conscious of the fact that this is going to happen and that there's actually a way to deal with it. Because we have a tendency to function subconsciously, it just happens gradually and we're not even aware that we are engaging in that attachment to past memories, past events. And in that way, in that sense, it can be debilitating. The first important step is that we acknowledge this. Simply be aware of this. That is not the difficult part. Everybody can recognize this, see it happening. Sometimes it overcomes you and it takes some time before you realize that it is happening. That can be in terms of hours, it can be sometimes in terms of days or weeks, but there comes a point that you say, aha, I see what is happening here. Now I have to go back to what I learned, step in and take control. It is not bad that you have memories from the past. In fact, it is an important part of self-realization. Because we have a tendency to function subconsciously, we engage in behavior, in patterns of behavior, sometimes destructive or negative, that we don't know why. We don't know why we are doing that. We don't know why we are repeating the same kind of pattern of behavior, even though we don't like it, even though we know that it leads to conflict or misery. So the valuable part of becoming aware of past events is that you start to see the law of cause and effect at work. You start to understand why you engage in certain behaviors or patterns that can be very negative, destructive, but over which you have no control. And when you start understanding where it comes from, the next step is then to try to transform that. And that is when traumatic experience, negative memory can turn into an asset, where it can become positive part of your development. So it's not that you should ignore memory or suppress it, but what is important is that you do not allow yourself to drown in the emotion. Because that is what we naturally do with a memory. We call it sentiment. We call it melancholy. Whole art forms exist because of this tendency to drown ourselves in our misery. Music, most music is about drowning in an emotion. Can be positive, it very often is negative. Most songs, what are they about? Most songs are about love. Very often about the negative aspects of love, the pain, the hurt, the breakup, the conflict. And when we listen to such a song, we drown ourselves in that sentiment. And strange enough, we enjoy the misery. That is melancholy. I should say, enjoy it, but do it consciously from now on. Because it does become a huge distraction and it can become very destructive. Better is to take control, to rationalize what is happening. Try to understand why you feel so strongly attracted or attached to that emotion. Try to learn something from it about yourself, about your past. But what is very important in this process is to leave out regret, blame, and guilt. Regret for the things that we missed in life. Blame to the people that hurt us. Guilt for the hurt that we caused. Regret, blame, and guilt are emotions that also tell us something. But again, we have a tendency to drown ourselves in that emotion. And that is when it becomes, it's not constructive anymore. It becomes destructive. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with regret, blame, and guilt? By surrender. Accepting that life has a certain design. For each individual, different design. Everything is as it is meant to be. Especially when it comes to our misery. That is, if you do something constructive and positive with it. So you rise above the emotion and you try to gain insight. Because in the end, technically, regret, blame, and guilt, they are emotions in which we can drown senselessly, uselessly, or we can use it as a signal that is teaching us something. And with that, guiding us into the future. If you have been hurt in the past, if you think about that, and the people who caused the hurt, you lose yourself in emotion. That emotion is real, don't get me wrong. But before you blame people for wrongdoing, remind yourself of your own imperfection. There are people who walk around with feelings of blame towards me, towards you. How do you deal with that? First of all, by opening your heart. You did wrong, you hurt people, you didn't do that on purpose. You did it out of ignorance. Ignorance. That means also, people that hurt you, they did it out of ignorance. Now, don't concern yourself too much with what other people do. That is their task in life. That is their karma. But keep yourself busy with yourself. That is what you can do. And your ignorance will slowly turn into light, into the opposite of ignorance, wisdom. And that is the purpose of those emotions, that is the purpose of those memories. That's not easy. If people have done you wrong in the past, it's very difficult to overcome the emotion and give them understanding, forgiveness. But you don't do that for them in the first place. You do that for yourself. Because that emotion is your biggest obstacle in life and it holds you back from being who you could be. It holds you back from your manifesting your true potential. Pratyahara means to let go of the sentiment and rationalize. Try to see reason, even in the most egregious experiences. That is how you grow, that is how you become strong, that is how yoga leads to wonderful manifestations that it is, every text is promising, wonderful developments. Remember the deer in the heart chakra, which represents alertness. We have a tendency to fall asleep, not literally, but in terms of alertness, in terms of awareness. No matter how much we understand of these lessons, we have a tendency, which is very human, to make the same mistake again. To again drown in an emotion. That's why that deer symbolically is so important. Pay attention. The moment you're hit with an emotion, try to rationalize it, try to figure out what caused it. What is it related to? What is it trying to tell you? That is how self-realization comes into being. And it is a process that happens naturally as a result of your yoga practice. Beginning yoga practitioners mostly find themselves temporarily emotionally unstable. That is a stage that you go through before the dust settles down and you become more stable than before. It's a temporary stage. It is the stage where you have these recollections, these memories, and that stage becomes longer if it happens subconsciously and we don't detach from those emotions properly. The Pratyahara is a very important tool where you go into a conversation with yourself when you are distracted, drowning in an emotion, and you say to yourself, I'm not going to allow this to happen. It is an important process, but you have to stay on top of it, not to allow yourself to drown and be distracted from the things in the present and the future that are actually important. I have many memories in the past that have distracted me for a while. They come back. You will never completely get rid of them, but they don't affect me anymore. Because of Pratyahara. I've seen those memories so many times that when they appear once in a while, much less frequent than in the past, when they appear, it's like meeting an old friend. And before it can threaten to affect me, I've already dismissed it. I say to that old friend, hey, I know you already, I don't need you anymore. That is half of the work you need to do. The next step is to direct your energy towards a neutral object. You have to divert your attention towards something in the present. Your work, your study, washing the dishes, cleaning, something, just something in the present, neutral, practical. We've done this already from the beginning. You concentrate on nada, there is a thought, a distraction. Remember I drew it on the whiteboard. Your head, nada in the center. When there is a thought, your energy is going out. The moment you are aware of the thought, you deny the thought. And you bring your attention back to nada, to the center. That is Pratyahara. You have started practicing Pratyahara before hearing the word. In the beginning, it can be a struggle. but you become skillful at it. Not only that, it will at some point become intuitive, which means in the past you subconsciously drowned yourself in an emotion when it appeared, resulting from a memory. Now subconsciously, intuitively, I like to use the word intuitively, but the process is similar to the subconscious drowning in the emotion, because you train yourself based on your consciousness, your awareness, consciously stepping in when you feel that it's threatening to go in the wrong direction. You train yourself to practice Pratyahara, detach and divert your attention to another object, a neutral object. It becomes natural. You don't, in the future, have to think about it anymore. It becomes intuitive. But to get there, you must go through the steps. You have to do practical training to get there. And today is the day to start doing that. Let me give you a very practical example. I've told you a little bit about my dad, who made 7 children with my mom, but he never really was there for his children because he suffered from trauma from the Second World War. That's okay, I'm not blaming him, but I don't need to want to be reminded of that all the time. The neglect that came with it. Now, after my father died, all my siblings had a photo of my dad on the chimney, on a cabinet, and they asked me why you don't. They gave me a photo also. Everybody had the same photo to put somewhere. I didn't put it anywhere. I just put it in a shoebox. So why do you not put it there? So I said, I don't want to look at him every day when I wake up or when I enter the living room. And this is the reason why. It is just a needless confrontation with an emotion that you, just out of practical consideration, you better leave behind. I don't blame him. I understand his misery. But I don't have to glorify something that doesn't deserve glorifying. You see? That's Pratyahara. So rationally, I'm struck with the emotion, I see where it comes from. I put the photo in a shoebox. So you deal with people in this way too. People that disturb you, you try to detach from. Especially when you're in a situation where you cannot avoid them. Like a boss, a manager at work. It can be a family member. Your mom or your dad or an uncle or... Don't get into conflicts, because they will happen again and again. Endless. Just try to avoid as much as possible, and when not possible, just focus on yourself. Do not allow the emotions that come with the presence of that person to penetrate you. Not anymore.
I have one question.
Yes.
So, like, you are telling that, like, if like someone is doing something bad against us, okay?
Say again.
If someone doing something against us, okay, So then we shouldn't care about that one, just focus in ourselves, right? But I think if something is doing something bad against us, it's a manifestation of our subconscious mind. So then we have to review that, like why that kind of things happen.
Yes, correct.
So then we can trace that, like what is happening in our subconscious mind. Then we can fix it.
Most of the times you can fix it, but sometimes it is because you have a principle. Sometimes you have conflict with people who do not accept that you have a principle. But you know in your heart that that principle is correct. It is the pure thing to do. But remember the lesson on purity, Saucha.
So that's what I'm telling you. If someone doesn't accept our principle, it
Yeah.
means that there is something in our subconscious mind that, like, in some certain point, we
Yeah.
didn't accept also some people, principle as well.
Yeah.
That's why it's coming back to us.
Yeah.
So it is like showing that, like, still there is something wrong in our subconscious mind, and we do not care about that point. That's why there is like some manifestation in our reality.
I'm not sure I understand exactly what you mean.
I mean, like, if something is not wrong in our subconscious mind, okay,
Yeah.
and we accept like every principle, then there is no one that like came to us and he said that, like, I don't accept your principle.
Oh.
But if
No, but that person comes into your life because that person is ignorant. That person is not the same as you are.
So, I mean, like, if there is nothing wrong with our subconscious mind, then there is no possibility to meet that person.
Right.
Are we right?
Okay, let me give you another personal example. This is a very current situation. I have 2 dogs. In the very beginning that Pada was running wild on the riverside, I was being helped by a couple of people that were walking their dogs. Now there's one guy with the personality of Trump. He's a narcissist. He is very rude to people, and he wants everybody to look at him, to focus on him, to admire him. Okay, to make a long story short, nobody likes him. His dog has bitten most dogs that also play there. He always blames other people. He has a big dog that has not been castrated, while all other dogs are castrated. But he's so proud of his male dog. He mates it with other, it's a border collie, but very big one. He mates it with other border collies. He's so proud when there are 10 little babies. Just to give you an idea of his personality. So he helped me. But I started detaching from him because of his rudeness. People admire Pada. He was a wild dog, but he's people literally say he's one of the best behaved dogs in the field. Because he's very gentle. When other dogs attack him, he just avoids instead of fighting. When other dogs take his stick, he just lets them. So people talk about my dog instead of his dog. And that's where the trouble starts. Then he starts looking for things to make my life miserable. And then Bobby came, which was 10 times worse than Pada. Then people started admiring me. Like, wow, this guy is that is so good what he is doing. These dogs, they were given up, and he bought his dog, a designer dog, and he trained his dog, and he throws a frisbee, and everybody is ooh and ah and wow. But now there is this stray dog that everybody starts to like, and then they start to like the owner. So he's making more and more trouble. It's a kind of situation, I think, that you are referring to. I do not want my dogs to suffer and stay away from there. But if I go there and I see him, I make a detour. But this is the thing. Everybody accepts his behavior, but I don't. It's a Korean thing. Don't rattle the cage. People behave bad, just ignore it. But that enables him to continue his behavior and get worse and worse. I don't accept it, so he focuses on me. So I avoid him. I compared him with Trump because reasoning with this guy is impossible. I tried that in the beginning. Because he helped me, I don't want to have an unnecessary, hostile relationship. But 5-6 times a conflict occurred caused by him, and I tried to play nice afterwards. First, I show that I don't agree, that what he's doing is not acceptable. But he turns and twists everything into his favor with blatant lies. So I gave up on that. And the 6th time, when he was threatening one of the dog, Bobby, to release her when I couldn't even touch her yet. He sent his dog to grab her leash, and he said, I'm going to release her. So I walked to his dog, I took the leash from his mouth, and that is the last time that I tried. Friday evening, he came into the field. 4 dogs want to play with his dog. His dog attacks one dog. After separating, he walks away, then he turns around and he runs and he kicks this dog like a soccer ball. Again, the people who witness that, they stay quiet. But he knows me. I put my dogs on the leash. I don't shout or argue with him because I know where that goes. I put my dogs on the leash and I start walking out of the field, and he follows me and he starts, I'm gonna kill you, and I know where you live, and I'm gonna visit. I had no involvement at all in what happened. I just stood there and I saw it happen, and I put my dogs on the leash and I walk away because I know how it goes. The people there, the Korean people, they feel bad, but nobody says anything. And if I say something, end up in a very useless, violent conversation. So I just walk away. Because I know karma will catch up with him. So I had a sleepless night. The conclusion is karma will catch up with him. And that is how you deal with these kind of situations, with those kind of people. You have a principle, don't bend, because then you corrupt yourself. You cannot watch yourself in the mirror the next morning when you wake up. But try to avoid unnecessary conflict and trust that the universe will take care of it. And it will. Throughout my life, there have been situations where you want to revenge and you don't, and you see that with time, those people are being overtaken by karma. So, and that's another thing that makes him even more angry, because I'm so cool. That's because I have faith. I just know that I don't have to. I'm not God. I'm not a policeman. But this guy is a criminal. That dog that he kicked, fortunately, survived, but he could have died. Nobody calls the police. Nobody tells him off. for me, okay, well, you know, if I can be so principled that I call the police, but then I will end up in a lot of turmoil that will keep me awake at night for weeks, if not months. I'm not willing to pay such a high price for my principle. Karma will take care of it. I'm confident. So, if people make your life miserable and it's difficult to completely detach from it, I do whatever I can, but I can't help it if I'm there and playing with other dogs. 6, 7 people usually gather there with their dogs, so dogs are just enjoying themselves. Then suddenly he walks in. I can't help that. What I can do is how I react to that situation. And it is not simple, but when you trust, when you have experienced time and time again, and you trust that karma is an undeniable law that inevitably will take care of the situation, it's very easy to detach and be cool about it. I'm happy, he is not. He is suffering day and night, every day, for which he's blaming me. So, detachment.
I have one question, like, during like that conflict, like in your mindset, did you accept like his behavior or not?
No. Unacceptable. This guy is evil. Like Trump.
Even it's evil.
Yeah.
So let me explain.
No,
like,
I can accept his behavior for as far as it doesn't affect me or the people around me. I cannot stop him.
So,
but I cannot accept if he affects the people around me or me.
can you say that?
You know why he threatened me? I'm going to kill you and I'll visit you at home. Even though I had nothing to do with the situation. Because he knows that I won't shut up. He knows that sooner or later the people in the neighborhood will know what happened. That he almost kicked his dog to death. And he knows that I'm the one who's going to spread that story.
I have like one similar experience, but like in my life when I was in Iran, there was some people with a specific characteristic which I never accept that characteristic. Never accept. So when I moved to Korea, I was thinking that like, okay, so I'm changing like you know, my location, like it's like a new country, like new people, and everyone.
Most of the foreigners who are in Korea are refugees, even though not officially.
So
you are one, I am one.
I explain. So,
yeah, sorry. It just reminded me of something. We all ran away from something.
I faced like the similar characteristic. Even they face, some people, they have some similar face.
Yeah.
Right? Like some point, their face also was similar.
Yeah.
And their characteristic exactly like copy and paste. You just, you know, copy that person here, just the language is different.
Yeah.
So during that like situation, I also suffered a lot.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't accept.
Yeah.
But after I accepted, after I learned like you know, like about subconscious mind, this kind of stuff, and after I accept their behavior, and they just, you know, shout to me, and I was just accepted and like staying cool. So in my mindset, I just accepted like this is his behavior. So what can I do? Yeah. So after a while, his behavior is totally changed, and some people just vanish.
Okay.
And like one of the person like in our company, and Even though like he's shouting to other people, but with me he's very cool because I already accept him, and his behavior totally changed to me.
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
Yeah. So this was like my experience. Because like in Iran, I couldn't accept that people. That's why when I moved here, the people again were around to me, same people.
So in conclusion, people are the same everywhere.
People are people,
Yeah.
regardless of culture, wherever you come from. People are people.
Actually, it's not about people. It is everything is here.
Yeah, human nature.
Yeah.
So yoga is universal. It deals with people all over the place, not only in India. There is a paragraph about unconditional love. We talked about unconditional love when we discussed the heart chakra. But that's a big part of Pratyahara too. When we fall in love, we are in heaven, but we become attached to our partner. And that is when the insecurity comes, the fear, the suspicion, and it happens also with if we have children. We have a tendency to be overprotective and tell them what to do and not to do, regardless of their nature or character. It's attachment that leads to that. The unconditional love, in the light of this subject, means to let go, let loose. If you understand a little bit about the purpose of yoga, which is the full manifestation of your potential, you must extend that to the people you love, especially the people you love. Allow other people the room to also fully manifest their true potential. Trust your partner, even though that is sometimes difficult, especially when they're secretive a little bit. And also trust the process that a child is in. A child that is overprotective is still an unexperienced child when it is an adult. We mature because we were allowed to fail when we were a child. You know, these days we have floor heating, central heating, what have you. When I was a child, we had coal stoves and petroleum stoves. And children are very much intrigued by the glow of the coal. Have you ever looked at glowing coals? It's magic. It moves and it flickers, or the flames in the petroleum or gas heater. So child just wants to touch it. And as a parent, you can 10 times or 20 times forbid your child to touch it, but then you're in the kitchen preparing some food or tea, and the child sees a chance and touches it anyway. It burns a finger and will never ever touch the stove again. Not because you forbade it, but because it experienced the danger of it. And we need, that is the principle of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, is exactly like this. We need to make mistakes to be able to move forward, because the mistake teaches us, like the child touching the stove. or the heater. Unconditional love is very difficult. Many things we are talking about here are very difficult. Because what we're talking about is trying to control, understand and control perfectly human behavior, perfectly natural but instinctive behavior that normally functions subconsciously but becomes conscious as a result of the developments that yoga lead to. That is also why it is so important to elaborate on the subject of Pratyahara and not just brush it off saying do not attach to material wealth and status. That's just too simple. Now about unconditional love, I once had a concerned student who said, I don't know if I mentioned this with the heart chakra, but it's also important, because unconditional love does not mean becoming a doormat. So that is what this student asked. What if my partner, my boyfriend, is treating me like a doormat? The answer to that is then he doesn't deserve your unconditional love. Because love is about mutual respect, dignity. This is very important in a relationship. Because you expose your deepest self to your partner. And if your partner does not respect that, treat you like a doormat, then you're with the wrong person. Can you see that? Because as yogis, we have a spine, we have a principle. And I give myself to you fully. But if you misuse that trust, and you hurt me with that, then it has nothing to do with unconditional love anymore. Being able to practice unconditional love towards your partner needs a lot of courage. Because you cannot demand from your partner to be unconditional too. But what you can at least expect, not demand, but expect, is that they treat that with dignity and not use it to have affairs outside because you practice unconditional love, you let me loose, you let me free, so I can do whatever I want. But then it leads to, then you are just harming yourself. That is not unconditional love, that is corrupting yourself. So you know, everything, if you look at it from our perspective, everything requires attention. Because we start doing things consciously, everything in life becomes like a balancing act, like walking on a tightrope. It's very easy to fall to the left or to the right, that you fall off your rope, lose your balance and fall off your rope. But that in reality is what life is about. A balancing act. And yoga is the science of balance, really. You see at the bottom, page 2, the Japanese warlord, samurai. That is what you become as a yogi. I think you can feel that. Part of the package is that you become principled. Every yogi becomes principled, develops a straight back. And that is not a bad thing. It doesn't make life easier. It is easier to bend and go with the wind wherever it blows. But impossible to have any sense of self-respect if you have such characteristic. The reward is that you feel good regardless of the severity of the situation. Because you don't bend whenever it is convenient. That gives an utter sense of strength, a sense of utter strength, inner strength, that you cannot buy or get in any other way than to stick to what you stand for. It's a balancing act. There will be some conflicts as a result of your principled approach, but you learn to navigate those conflicts. Like I explained with this guy, I could end up in a fight with him, but no, that's not going to happen. Maybe he would like that, but it's not going to happen. Because I'm walking on my tightrope. And he gets more and more frustrated as a result. You see, I can be a little bit sarcastic also. Just observing those kind of interaction and how helpful people are when they're purely functioning based on their lower instincts. It's not fair, of course. Should show compassion sometimes. Good. Questions? Let's have a short break.